What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So I wasn't actually gonna do this video, but hey, guess what? Here we are. Before we get too far into it, again, we have our Carefree Surfer Stitch Enchanted Rare giveaway. We just need to hit the goal, 3,000 subscribers. Let's go hit it. But yeah, so I wasn't going to do this video, and I wasn't going to because I was like, well, lots of other people already gave their takes, best decks, we know what's going on, we know the format, right? And then I was like, I'm kind of curious what the tier list looks like. So I started looking into it. I was like, wow, no one really did a tier list. Like, there's not much out there. Not to say there's none, but there really is not much out there. So we have 20 decks today. So some color combinations are coming in here multiple times. 20 decks here today to rank and kind of talk about. We have 4 categories to put them in. Tier 1 are our best decks. Tier 1.5 are decks that can still win. Tier 2 are decks that I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they have local success, maybe more if you have a lucky day, a good run, good matchups, things like that. And then we have our Rogue, which is, it's not impossible. It's not likely, but it is not impossible. So we're going to jump right on in. Again, 20 decks, and our first one you can see here is our Amber Emerald. Where did I really want to put Amber Emerald? Well, I didn't want to put them up too high, actually. They're going to actually start out in our Rogue category. These 2 color combinations, I actually did see a tournament result where they were in top. I don't remember how many people there were, and I think that's part of the problem. Like right now, we see so many events, and for Lorcana, if you have 30, 40 people, that's a good sized tournament. I'm coming from a TCG, however, where we record top 8s, but therefore 3, 4, 800 person events that we care about top 8s. So to me, it's taking a little bit to get used to the size difference in these. So do keep that in mind. But I still think that this is just a rogue strategy, whether you're using the discard engine or just the fact that both decks can actually get pretty aggressive on lore early. I do think any way that you're going to put Amber and Emerald together, you're probably going to, it's not impossible, right? You could see success. Moving on to another one, we have Amber Sapphire. Where do we want to put here? So obviously Amber decks are aggro. You have your singers, you have your powerful, actually I shouldn't say songs because the best songs are in steel, but you have your singers, you have great shift targets. If you want to know more about Amber, we did a video breaking it down, going over pretty much all the cards, good cards, shifts, singers, anything and everything you need to know about the ink type to help you better learn the game. And we're going to be going over all 6 of them, but we started with Amber because alphabetically it's the first one. Probably do Amethyst next and just keep with that category. Amber Sapphire, I'm going to go ahead and put it in tier 2. I really haven't played the deck nor played against it too much, just checking for results, looking for it, and I haven't seen a ton, but compared to these other decks, I have seen a little bit more. So I do want to put it in the tier 2 category, but again, I would be lying to you guys if I said I knew exactly what this build was aiming to do. Amethyst Emerald, where do we want to put these guys? I feel like these are 2 great supporting engines, but together I think that they just kind of fall flatter. So we're going to go put them down in our Rogue category. If I put them here, this isn't necessarily this deck's better than this deck either. It's just me kind of wherever I decide to let go of the mouse. For our Rogue category, Amethyst Emerald is going to come in as another Rogue strategy for us. Well, while we're on the subject, Amethyst Sapphire again, 2 very, very good supporting engines. I'm going to put them down in Rogue. This is one I could maybe see coming up to tier 2. I have messed with it a little bit. However, I just think in the current format, it is going to stay down as a Rogue deck. We see a lot of Emerald down here already as well. And I don't think Emerald Sapphire is going to be any higher. Kind of crazy that okay, there's only 4 Rogue decks, guys. That's it. That's Rogue right there. Only kind of crazy that 4 Rogue decks came in so early in our chart. I actually didn't even look at that ahead of time. Moving forward, though, we have Mufasa Roulette, Mufasa Control. We have Mufasa. Ruby Amber. This deck, however, I have actually been playing. It's a ton of fun. It's been seeing a lot more success. And if you see oh man, I can't think of his name now. He posts in the group, he posts in the Discord, and he has all them great pie charts where he puts together the topping decks for Pixelborn and the win percentages. This deck actually has one of the better win percentages, a little less on the total play rate, but win percentage wise, it's one of the better ones. I do think that Ruby Amber, specifically the Mufasa Control, Mufasa Roulette, again, is going to be one of your better decks. Definitely a deck that you can win an event with, do well at an event with. Well, let's be honest here, guys. We kind of know what tier 1's going to be, right? Should we throw it all up in there? Because I do actually have 3 decks to put up here, so keep that in mind. Speaking of tier 1, Sapphire and Steel Resist. I think this deck is probably one of the harder decks of the format to pilot, but I think when piloted correctly, it's one of the best decks of the format. Its win percentage is, again, up there. I think it was one of the top 3 with Amber, Ruby, and we'll get to the other one in a few decks, and then I will let you know which one it was. And that is actually, I believe, the one that had the highest win percentage. However, I think that Sapphire Steel is one of those decks where if you're liking like heavy kind of like more make you think, work through your playline type decks, I think this is the deck for you. It does come in a little bit pricier, but I think if you put in the time to learn the deck, it is absolutely worth it, as this is going to be one of the best options for you to actually go to an event and win it, especially before Into the Inklands comes and our Ruby Amethyst is the top deck. Since we just kind of hinted at it, Ruby Amethyst Bounce Control, top deck, there's no debating it. Just the sheer amount of people playing it. On Pixelborn, it's a little different because I think everyone can kind of do whatever they want. But these in real life events and these events for money, we're seeing like 50 to 80% of top cuts being this deck. There's no doubt that part of that is representation, but everyone wouldn't be playing this deck if it wasn't the best deck of the format. Coming back down over here, we have our Ruby Emerald. Where do I want to put Ruby Emerald? Well, I feel like there's kind of 2 routes you could kind of go with this, and one being evasive. This is more specific, the evasive. I don't think it necessarily matters, so we're going to go and put both of them here in tier 2 that you could see some local success. And this one's more of like a discard control, because the Emerald helps you control their hand, whereas the Ruby helps you control their board. And you put board and hand control together, you just kind of control your opponent completely, managing your resources and having cards you need to maintain that advantage, however, is the hard part. Moving forward, this is a deck that I personally love. I think this deck is very strong. I think it's very underrated. Hyper Aggro, Amber Amethyst. I think this deck can see so much success, and I've been talking to people about it and saying, like, I know as appealing as your Lilos, your Maleficents, your Pinocchios, all these 1/1 stat guys are who just quest crazy and you go fast, you get the bodyguards, you do all this, but you just absolutely die to the steel cards, right? Well, if you sub some of that out, you still say, let's call it not hyper aggro, we'll just call it super aggro. So Amber Amethyst super aggro, you swap out some of these cards with the Queen package, which is a 2 lore quester on turn 2 for Sleepy, who is a 2 lore quester for 2. But their stat lines come in as a 4/3 and a 2/3, even playing Doc as another 2/3, essentially playing cards that still quest for multiple and you can get them out early in the game. However, you don't just automatically get board wiped by a grab your swords. It takes a little bit more than just to grab your swords to actually wipe your board. Personally, I think that's the better way to play the deck, having played both versions of it very extensively. I have a deck profile talking about this up on the channel, working on a new gameplay video with the updated list as well that we'll get to at some point, so stay tuned for that one. Moving on forward, we do have our first Amber Steel. So Steel Song. Where do I want to put Steel Song? I think this is a deck that is on the verge of being up here with the other decks. I know they're not the greatest matchup with our Steel Sapphire here, so that's a big part of why Steel Song has started to kind of taper down, along with some other matchups. However, Ruby Amethyst being a good matchup, I think Steel Song is starting to get figured out again. and as a result of being figured out again, it's starting to come up. This version specifically is without flute. I was debating on like kind of separating flute and no flute. Personally, I think no flute is slightly better, and I don't know if that's the minority or the majority, or if it's pretty even split between the two. I think, not that flute's a bad card, I just feel that the no flute version is slightly better. However, I had a crazy game playing Ruby Amethyst against this on ranked on Pixelborn, and I think he had like 20 cards in deck. I was up like 18 to 17, and I had, what was it, Ursula and Maleficent on board, I want to say, something like that. Or maybe it was Ursula, or no, it was Ursula and Lady Tremaine. So 4 lore basically, or 5 lore sitting there. I'm at 18. He's got to get rid of both of them. He had nothing but a flute. He already discarded one other flute, and he hardcast his whole new world into 2 more flutes, played them, used all 3 flutes, and he won the game. It was just kind of a crazy game. I do plan on showing that replay when we do our replay video for Amber, or for Ruby Amethyst, because I felt like it was a very good replay, and sometimes there's a lot to learn from losses, so I am not above showing losses whatsoever if there's something to learn. This is the deck with the highest win percentage right now. Amethyst Steel Control. Yeah, I think that this deck is scary good. They pair up, like I said, Steel is just a very strong deck, kind of like Ruby, and Amethyst being probably the best supporting engine. And then you kind of have everything out, your Emerald, your Amber, and your Sapphire right behind as far as supporting engines go. So it just kind of comes down to how they mix together and which matchups you want to pair up for it. But I think that Amethyst Steel Control is probably the best tier 1.5 deck that we have currently. Where we do have another Amethyst Steel deck here, and this one's a little less control, more aggro. I'm actually going to put them down as tier 2. I think there's a distinct difference. This one's kind of like this deck, but a little less aggro, and it has more removal, and I have played it, and I definitely like this version a lot more. I could see this one coming up here if people start to tweak it a little bit more and fine tune it, but as of right now, I think the majority of the success the aggro version has seen is more just to people not being prepared to see that from this deck. So moving forward, I could see it going up, but for right now, I think we're going to leave it right near the top of tier 2. Popsicle Control, not Popsicle Patrol. Where do I want to put them? I was really debating if they're going to be high tier 2 or low tier 1.5, and I'm just deciding right now because I really, even to this point, wasn't sure where I was going to put it. I'm going to put them at the back end of 1.5. That's not going to be our most controversial one, nor is this. Our most controversial one is yet to come, so make sure you're ready for that. Ruby Steel, where do I want to put them? These are kind of the 2 powerhouse engines. However, the deck just doesn't blow me away. I'm actually going to put it down at tier 2. Let me know if you disagree on that, but me personally, like, it seems I haven't had an issue against this deck with any deck that I'm playing. Like, every deck I've tested and played, I just don't have issues with this deck. So I just personally, I have no faith in it being personally that great, and I would borderline put it down here. That would be me being too biased, so I'm not going to do that. Then we have our Steel Emerald discard. This is a deck that this is the one. This is the one that people are going to not like me for. Again, I've had 0 issues with this, and maybe it's because I don't play Ruby Amethyst very often. I'm putting this deck at tier 2. I'm going to put it at the top of tier 2, but in testing, I have tested Amethyst Steel a bunch, Steel Song a bunch, Steel Sapphire a little bit, this deck a crazy amount. I've tested Ruby Amber a pretty good amount. I played Ruby Amethyst when I first started, and even Ruby Amethyst, I had a winning record against this deck. I don't know. Like, maybe I've just gotten a lot of bad players with this deck, but even when I tested it, like, even my wins, I felt like some of them I just shouldn't have, and I kind of luck sacked or my opponent made a key misplay. I'm not sold on this deck, and I know this is going to be my biggest controversial decision in this video, putting them down at tier 2, but Emerald Steel discard, I'm not sold on this deck. I know it's seeing decent results. I can't get behind it. I don't know. Like I said, that's just one that a lot of people are going to disagree and say, no, it's up here, it's a top 5 deck, and I'm just not going to put it there. So there's that. We do see another Ruby Amethyst deck, and I think we started to see, maybe not a lot, and this might be pushing it a little bit with the Stitch. I just wanted a more aggressive card, but I've been seeing a decent bit more Ruby Amethyst list playing a bit more aggressive, whether it's Maleficent as a turn 1 play instead of Olaf, or even coming back with Pinocchio or playing Stitch late game. And I think the aggressive manner of it is to try and win, or at least get better established before this deck has a chance to get that control over it, because this deck takes a few turns to really get rolling. So this deck also wants to go longer, and this deck just has a decent chance against it because card for card this one just outpaces it. However, once you get a little more aggressive, I think it applies the pressure to this deck to where you actually start to swing the favor back in your category here. So I do want to put that here. I'm going to say bounce control is still the better version as opposed to the bounce control but with slightly more aggressive cards. But do keep in mind that more aggressive cards have been seeing their way into these decks, and don't be surprised if you see it moving forward. We have our third Amber Steel deck, and this one isn't focused around songs. This one is Tiana Control, Tiana Aggro, and I've started to see her a little bit more and more. I'm going to put it into 1.5. I don't know exactly where I'd want it. Again, these aren't necessarily in order here either. Relatively, yeah, they are, but at the same time, I think the margin between these 7 decks here and these 6 decks is so small. And even like I said, if you want to move this up, I guess I get it, but I'm leaving it there. But yeah, so here is my tier list. Here is my ranking 20 Lorcana decks. Let me know down below, did I miss out on a deck? Certain ones, I just went off the colors without having their specific names, because I know there's going to be a lot more out there. However, let me know what you guys think down below about this. Again, like, share, subscribe, Stitch giveaway, lots of stuff coming for you guys as well. Deck building 101 coming soon, Ruby Amethyst stuff, Amber Amethyst updated list, how to play Steel Song, how to build the deck, things like that. But thanks guys for watching, and until next time, take care.